Secret Life. Confusion of tongues. Once, through a glitch in the system, an employee on the fifth floor was forgotten but remained on the payroll. She had only one task: to stamp approved. Several years before, this job had required a full-time employee because so many documents had to be approved. However, that time had passed long ago. Now, in an office on the opposite side of the building, another employee rushed to stamp "rejected" on a mountain of documents. The order of such things might again reverse itself, but for now the woman spent her days in languid anticipation of the next document, which might not arrive for several hours. The woman did not even have a window to distract her. A rare storm from the south had broken the window, and the custodians had replaced it with planks of wood. Sometimes she would peer through the cracks of light in the wood, but all that lay beyond was the sky. Had she expected anything different? Yes, she had. Mostly the woman read or listened to the radio. Late in the day she might dance or even drink whiskey from a flask. She did these things at home in her tiny apartment too, but they felt more daring at work. The first time she saw a mouse, she gasped. The custodial staff did not like mice. As a child, she had spent summers on her grandparents' farm. She used to sleep outside, smelling clover, grass, and the thick earth as she stared up at the sky. She would ride her horse for hours over the lush, green countryside. Much to her grandfather's bewilderment, she also tried to save mice from the half-feral farm cats. There was no reason to call. She had been acting out the role of someone who was not her. Nothing this exciting had happened to her all day. The next day, the woman began to bring breadcrumbs, seeds, and other scraps from her apartment. She even went to the store to buy cheese. Their quick, hesitant movements amused her. Their psychic abilities impressed her as well. They always disappeared at least 15 minutes before the courier arrived with the latest document to enjoy the stamp of approval. She found herself trying out names for the mice, like Charlie, Paul, Gwen, Terry, Lisa, Myra, Jonathan, Bob. After a while, as she sat in her office without windows, waiting for the next document, she found herself listening to the chirping language of the mice as they bickered over a biscuit or a rind of cheese. The more she watched them as they spoke to each other, the more she began to understand the nuances of their speech. Once or twice she lay on the floor and covered her arms with bits of cracker and seeds. The bristly feel of their whiskers, the softness of their noses, the delicate touch of their paws, all of this helped her to understand them. Several years passed. The woman's hair became flecked with gray. Her father and mother both died within a year of each other. The number of documents to be stamped never increased or decreased. Her entwined states of being friendless and alone were broken by all too infrequent periods of happiness that only made her feel worse when they ended abruptly. But she did learn the language of the mice. So well did she learn their language that she was able to teach them elements of her own language. This happened slowly and steadily, so that she almost did not notice the change, how the mice became her eyes and ears in other parts of the building, how they reported back to her on events and people that fascinated her. And because the viewpoint of a mouse is rather like that of a child, different and new, and sparkling around the edges, their accounts were all the more entertaining and insightful. The woman let her hair grow long and did not bother to dye the gray out of it. She wore long patchwork skirts and slippers. She stopped drinking whiskey. She no longer even bothered to say hello to the infrequent courier. Instead, she found herself speaking more and more often through her mice, and the voices of the mice became her voice. They spoke out in rustles and murmurs and chirps from the air ducts and the little holes in the vents and the pipes. A dusty whisper that filled the building little by little until the custodians would look up from their jaded contemplation of the newspaper, struck by what seemed like a tongue of air in a place where no breeze ever blew. At least, this is the story some inhabitants of the building tell to explain why at odd times voices can be heard, speaking through the walls. Secret Life.